A garage on wheels fantasy, Kara said, her wine glass tilted toward our friends like she was making a toast to my stupidity. The dinner party fell silent for a second, then erupted in polite laughter. I stood there holding a stack of homemade business cards, the ink still slightly wet from my printer. My name is Travis Beckett, sat beneath the words, "Mobile Auto Repair, we come to you." I'd been so proud an hour ago. Now I just felt small. Kara wasn't done. She leaned back in her chair, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. He quit his job at the dealership for this, 34 years old, and he's having a midlife crisis on wheels. More laughter. I set the cards down on the kitchen counter and walked outside. The September air felt cold against my face. Behind me, I could hear her voice continuing the performance, probably describing how I'd been sketching van designs on napkins for months. I didn't go back inside until everyone left. When I finally did, Kara was loading the dishwasher, humming like nothing had happened. I picked up wine glasses in silence, each clink against the counter echoing louder than it should. 3 days later, I was in the garage organizing tools when I heard Kara's voice through the wall. She was on the phone in the kitchen, her tone different from the one she used with me, lighter, more animated. "No, seriously, he actually thinks this mobile thing will work," she said. There was a pause, then laughter. "Pathetic?" "Yeah, that's the word. He had benefits, steady pay, and he threw it away to drive around fixing cars in parking lots." I stopped moving. The wrench in my hand suddenly felt heavy. "Kyle thinks I should just let him fail and come crawling back," she continued. Kyle, her co-worker from the insurance office, the guy she'd been mentioning a lot lately. "Maybe he's right," she said. "Some people need to learn the hard way." I set the wrench down carefully and walked back into the house. Kara looked up, startled, her phone still pressed to her ear. "I'll call you back," she said quickly. We stared at each other across the kitchen island. I didn't ask who she was talking to. I didn't need to. Something shifted inside me that afternoon, something quiet but permanent. I stopped waiting for her approval. The van cost me $8,000, most of my savings. It was a 2008 Ford Transit, white with rust spots near the wheel wells, and an engine that sounded like it had opinions about life. The previous owner had used it for plumbing, so it still smelled faintly of pipe sealant. I bought it from a guy named Tony who ran a shop 2 towns over. When I drove it home and parked it in our driveway, our neighbor Mr. Paulson stared from his porch like I'd brought home a spaceship. Kara came outside, arms crossed. "You actually bought that thing." It wasn't a question. "It's got good bones," I said. "The engine's solid, transmission's been rebuilt, and there's enough space in back for all my equipment." She walked around it slowly, her face twisted in disgust. "It's a money pit, Travis. You're going to sink everything we have into this and end up with nothing." "We don't have anything together anymore," I said quietly. That stopped her. She stared at me for a long moment, then went back inside without another word. I spent the rest of the day cleaning the van, scrubbing years of grime from the interior. By sunset, it looked almost respectable. I spray-painted the Roadrunner on the side in block letters. It wasn't professional, but it was mine. My first client canceled 30 minutes before I was supposed to arrive. Battery replacement, easy job, $25 profit. She called saying her cousin could do it cheaper. The second job went worse. Oil change for a guy named Marcus, who worked at the grocery store. Everything was going fine until I cross-threaded the drain plug and had to spend an extra hour fixing my own mistake. Marcus was understanding, but I didn't charge him the full amount. I couldn't. That night, Kara found me in the garage, going over my expenses in a notebook. "How'd your first week go?" she asked. Her tone was casual, but I knew that look. "Learning curve," I said. She laughed, sharp and cold. "Maybe you should fix your own business first before you try fixing everyone else's cars." I didn't look up. I just kept writing, logging every expense, every mistake, every lesson. The notebook filled up fast. After she left, I sat there alone with the numbers. I'd made $73 in 6 days. My van payment was $200 a month. But something about the work felt right, like I was finally building something that belonged to me. Hank Patterson found me 2 weeks later, parked outside a diner, trying to figure out why a customer's check engine light wouldn't turn off. I'd been there for 90 minutes, and the owner was getting impatient. "You're flooding it," a voice said. I looked up to find an older man, maybe 70, with grease under his fingernails and kind eyes. "The oxygen sensor's reading rich because you're overcompensating with the fuel mixture." He was right. 10 minutes later, the light was off, and the customer drove away satisfied. Hank bought me coffee and told me he'd run his own shop for 40 years before retiring. "Mobile's the future," he said. "People don't want to wait at shops anymore. They want convenience. But you need systems, kid. You're working too hard for too little." He spent the next hour teaching me about flat-rate pricing, customer scheduling, and how to estimate jobs more accurately. When I got home that night, Kara was in the living room with her phone. She barely looked up. I noticed she was texting someone, smiling at her screen. I didn't ask. I was too busy thinking about everything Hank had taught me. The grocery store parking lot was mostly empty when I saw her, a young woman standing beside a minivan with the hood up, her daughter sitting in the back seat. It was raining, and neither of them had jackets. "Need help?" I called out. She looked relieved. "It just died. I don't know anything about cars." "Dead battery. Simple fix." I had jumper cables in the Roadrunner and got her started in 15 minutes. She tried to pay me, but I waved her off. "First one's free," I said. 2 days later, I got a notification on my phone. She'd posted a review on Google. "Travis saved us in a parking lot during a rainstorm. Professional, kind, and fast. Best mobile mechanic in Ohio. Highly recommend." It was my first 5-star review. By the end of the week, 3 people had called because of it. I showed Kara the review that night, hoping she'd see what I saw: progress, momentum, possibility. She glanced at my phone, then went back to her dinner. "Cute," she said. "A Yelp hero." But I didn't need her validation anymore. The customers were validating me just fine. The ultimatum came on a Tuesday night in November. Kara stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed, her face set in that expression I'd learned meant a decision had already been made. "This isn't working," she said. "I need you to get a real job again, Travis." "Something stable." "This is a real job," I replied. "No, it's not. It's a hobby that's draining our savings and making us look ridiculous." I sat up in bed. "I'm covering my expenses. I'm building something." "You're playing mechanic in parking lots," she said. Her voice rose. "I can't do this anymore. Either you go back to the dealership or you move out." The room went quiet. Outside, I could hear wind rattling the gutters. "I'm not quitting," I said finally. She stared at me, waiting for me to break, to apologize, to fold like I always had before. When I didn't, she turned and walked to the closet. 20 minutes later, she had a suitcase packed. "I'm staying at my sister's until you come to your senses," she said. Then she was gone. I sat there in the silence, staring at the empty closet. For the first time in months, I felt something close to relief. The house felt too big without her. I worked longer hours to avoid coming home, taking jobs across 3 counties, sleeping in the Roadrunner some nights when it didn't make sense to drive back. Bills stacked up on the kitchen counter: mortgage, utilities, van payment. Some nights I sat at the table doing math, trying to figure out how to make it all work. Hank called me one evening when I was parked outside a warehouse, eating a gas station sandwich. "You're working too hard for pennies," he said. "You need fleet contracts, kid, businesses with multiple vehicles, steady income, repeat customers." "How do I get those?" I asked. "You knock on doors and you prove you're reliable. Start with delivery companies, landscaping crews, anyone with a fleet. Offer them a discount for the first month. Once they see your work, they'll stay." It made sense. The next morning, I printed new flyers and started visiting local businesses. Most ignored me. A few laughed, but one, a small delivery company called Quick Ship, agreed to a trial. They had 12 vans that needed regular maintenance. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. For the first time, I saw a path forward. The Quick Ship contract changed everything. Every Monday and Thursday, I serviced their fleet. Oil changes, brake checks, tire rotations. The owner, a guy named Ramon, was skeptical at first, but after a month, he told me I was the most reliable mechanic he'd ever worked with. "You show up on time, you do good work, and you don't price gouge," he said. "That's rare." Word spread. 2 other small businesses reached out, both needing mobile maintenance for their vehicles. By December, I had 3 steady contracts and enough individual customers to fill the gaps. For the first time since starting, I paid all my bills on time. I even had money left over. I called my lawyer and had him draw up alimony papers. Nothing vindictive, just clean, fair, final. When I mailed them to Kara, I didn't include a note. There was nothing left to say. A week later, she called. "You're really doing this?" she asked. Her voice sounded different, smaller. "Yeah," I said. "I am." There was a long pause, then she hung up. I didn't call back. The divorce papers came back signed in February. Kara had written one sentence in the margins: "You'll never make it past this town." I read it twice, then filed the papers in a drawer. That night, I sat in the Roadrunner and thought about everything that had happened, the humiliation, the mockery, the ultimatums. And I realized something. She'd taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Never wait for someone else's applause. I didn't need her belief. I didn't need her approval. I just needed to keep working. The next morning, I hired my first employee, a young mechanic named Omar, who'd been laid off from a dealership. He was hungry, skilled, and grateful for the opportunity. A month later, I hired another, then bought a second van. By spring, I wasn't just Travis Beckett with a mobile repair business. I was Travis Beckett, owner of Beckett Mobile Services. We serviced 6 cities across Ohio. Kara's words echoed sometimes late at night, but they didn't sting anymore. They fueled me. By summer, I had 5 vans on the road and 8 employees. We'd painted them all the same color, deep blue with white lettering, professional, clean, recognizable. Hank helped me design a simple logo, a wrench inside a circle with our name underneath. I moved out of the house Kara and I had shared and into a small apartment near the shop I'd rented for storage and admin work. It wasn't much, but it was mine. We started getting calls from cities I'd never even visited: Columbus, Cleveland, Akron. People wanted mobile service, and we were the only ones doing it right. I hired a receptionist named Angela to manage the phones and scheduling. She was organized, sharp, and kept me sane. "You're building something real here," she told me one afternoon. "People notice." I didn't know how much they noticed until a reporter from a local business journal called, wanting to interview me about the mobile repair revolution. I almost laughed. Revolution felt like a big word for a guy who'd started with a beat-up van and a stack of coffee-stained business cards. But I agreed to the interview. What did I have to lose? The article ran in September, exactly 1 year after Kara had humiliated me at that dinner party. The headline read, "From Garage to Gold, How One Ohio Mechanic Reinvented Auto Repair." There was a photo of me standing beside the Roadrunner, arms crossed, smiling. I looked confident. I looked like someone who knew what he was doing. The article talked about my business model, my growth, my vision for expanding mobile services across the Midwest. It mentioned my background: 17 years at a dealership, a leap of faith, a belief in convenience and quality. Within a week, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. New customers, new contracts, even a few competitors wanting to know how I'd scaled so fast. Then, 3 days after the article published, Kara sent me a text. It was the first time I'd heard from her since the divorce papers. Just checking in. How's the van? I stared at the message for a long time. The van. Like I was still driving that single rusted transit around parking lots, begging for work. I replied simply, "Fine. Hope you're well." Nothing more. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just busy. The investor meeting happened in October. A venture capitalist named Preston Hall reached out after reading the article. He ran a fund that specialized in service-based startups and thought my scheduling system had potential. I'd built a basic app over the summer, something customers could use to book repairs, track technicians, and pay digitally. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. Preston flew in from Chicago and met me at a coffee shop. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my first van, but he was sharp, asked good questions, and didn't waste time. "You've proven the model works locally," he said, "but can you scale it regionally?" "Nationally?" "With the right resources, yes," I said. He smiled. "Let's talk numbers." 2 weeks later, I had my first round of funding, $250,000. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough to hire developers, upgrade equipment, and expand into new markets. The first thing I did with the money was buy Hank a brand new rolling toolbox, top of the line, every drawer filled with tools. When I showed up at his house with it, he cried, "You didn't have to do this, kid." "You believed in me when no one else did," I said. "This is just the start." By winter, the media buzz was impossible to ignore. A regional magazine ran a feature titled "Small Business, Big Impact." Another outlet included me in their 30 under 40 entrepreneurs to watch list, even though I was 35 now. My company was being discussed on local business podcasts, at Chamber of Commerce meetings, in online forums about the future of service industries. One of Kara's friends sent her the magazine article. I know because she posted a vague status on social media. Funny how people change when they get a little attention. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I was too busy hiring a marketing team, expanding into Indiana and Pennsylvania, and designing a new app interface that would let customers schedule same-day service with live GPS tracking. Beckett Mobile wasn't just a business anymore. It was becoming a brand. And I was starting to realize that everything Kara had mocked, the van, the vision, the dream, had been the best decision I'd ever made. Not because I wanted to prove her wrong, but because I'd finally proven something to myself. In January, I signed a lease on a real office, 2 floors in a downtown building, with space for admin, dispatch, customer service, and a small tech team. The vans were still on the road, but now they had support, infrastructure, a foundation. I hired 12 more people in the first month. We weren't just fixing cars anymore. We were building systems, processes, scalability. The app launched in February. Customers could request service, track their technician in real time, and rate their experience afterward. Within 2 weeks, we had 5,000 downloads. By March, we'd serviced over 2,000 vehicles across 4 states. The local news ran a segment about us. They interviewed customers, filmed our technicians at work, and ended with me standing in front of our office talking about the future of mobile repair. "We're not trying to replace traditional shops," I said. "We're just trying to meet people where they are." That night, my phone rang. It was Kara. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey," I said. "I saw you on TV," she said. Her voice was tight. "Guess you finally got lucky." I smiled even though she couldn't see it. Luck had nothing to do with it. The call with Kara lasted less than 2 minutes. She tried to sound casual, like she was just reaching out as an old friend, but I could hear something else underneath. Jealousy, maybe, or regret. "So you're doing well then," she said. "I'm doing the work," I replied. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end. "You know, I always believed in you, Travis." I just didn't think the timing was right back then. I almost laughed. Almost. "That's not how I remember it," I said. Another pause, longer this time. "Well, I'm glad things worked out for you," she said finally. "Take care, Kara," I said, and ended the call. I set my phone down and stared out the window of my office. The city stretched out below me, lights flickering in the evening haze. I didn't feel angry, I didn't feel vindicated, I just felt tired. But it was a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from building something real. I never called her back, and she didn't call me again. For a while. The international deal came out of nowhere. A logistics firm based in London reached out in April, interested in licensing our app and service model for the UK market. They'd been following our growth and thought the concept could work in European cities where parking was scarce and mobile services were in demand. I flew to London in May for a week of meetings. We signed a partnership agreement that gave them rights to use our branding and technology in exchange for a percentage of revenue. It wasn't full ownership, but it was global expansion. By June, Beckett Mobile Services had operations in 3 countries. We were featured in international business publications, and my inbox was flooded with inquiries from investors, journalists, and aspiring entrepreneurs. I hired a PR team to manage it all. My story was being shared online. The mechanic who quit his steady job, got mocked by his wife, and built an empire anyway. It was motivating to some, inspirational to others. To me, it was just what happened when you refuse to quit. The company was growing faster than I'd ever imagined, and I was learning that success wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about proving yourself right. In August, my head of HR, a sharp woman named Brenda, posted a job opening for operations manager at our new division in Pittsburgh. It was a senior role, someone to oversee logistics, manage regional teams, and help us scale into new territories. We needed someone experienced, organized, and hungry. The applications started rolling in within hours. Brenda filtered through dozens, selecting the best candidates for interviews. I usually didn't get involved in hiring below the executive level, but Brenda sent me the short list anyway, just to keep me in the loop. I was scanning through the names one evening when I saw it. Kara Beckett. Well, technically, Kara Stillman now. She'd gone back to her maiden name after the divorce, but it was her. Same email address, same work history. Insurance admin, customer service manager, operations coordinator. She'd been laid off 6 months ago, according to her cover letter. She was looking for a fresh start. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. Of all the companies in the country, she'd applied to mine, and she had no idea. I didn't tell Brenda who Kara was. I just asked her to schedule an interview. She looks qualified on paper, Brenda said. References check out. She's got operations experience. Let's meet her, I said. Brenda scheduled her for the following Thursday at 10 a.m. I cleared my calendar. When the day came, I arrived early, dressed in a suit, and waited in the main conference room. Brenda didn't ask why I was sitting in on a mid-level hire. She probably thought I was just being thorough. At 9:58, the receptionist called. "Miss Stillman is here." "Send her up," I said. I watched the clock. 10 o'clock, 10:01. Then the door opened, and Kara walked in. She was dressed sharply. Blazer, slacks, hair pulled back. She looked professional, confident, like someone who'd done this 100 times before. Then she saw me. Her face went pale. She froze in the doorway, her leather portfolio clutched against her chest. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. "Travis?" she finally said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Have a seat, Kara," I said calmly, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sat down slowly, like the chair might collapse under her. Her hands were shaking. I could see her trying to process what was happening, trying to reconcile the man she'd mocked with the CEO sitting across from her now. "I didn't know this was your company," she said. "I know," I replied. I opened her resume on my tablet, scanning it like I hadn't already memorized every line. "So, operations coordinator, customer service management, looks like solid experience." "Yes," she said, her voice steadier now. I've been working in operations for 8 years. I'm very organized, detail-oriented, and I work well under pressure. I nodded. Why do you want to work for Beckett Mobile? She hesitated. I could see her choosing her words carefully. I believe in what you're building here. Mobile services are the future, and your company is leading the industry. I want to be part of that. Interesting, I said, because a few years ago you told me mobile repair was a midlife crisis on wheels. Her face flushed red. Travis, I'm not angry, I interrupted. I'm just curious. What changed? She looked down at her hands. I was wrong. I see that now. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. Kara sat across from me, her professional mask cracking at the edges. I could see the shame in her eyes, the regret, the realization that every cruel word she'd spoken was now sitting in the room with us. Tell me about your last role, I said, keeping my tone neutral. She cleared her throat. I was a customer service manager at High Point Insurance. I managed a team of 12, handled client escalations, and improved our response times by 30%. And why did you leave? Layoffs, she said quietly. Budget cuts. They eliminated my entire department. I nodded. That's difficult. What did you do after that? I applied to over 50 jobs, she said. Most didn't respond. A few interviewed me, but nothing worked out. Then I saw your posting, and it seemed like a good fit. You didn't know it was my company when you applied? No, she said. I swear I didn't. I just saw Beckett Mobile and thought it sounded familiar, but I didn't make the connection until I walked in here. I believed her. It was written all over her face. Well, I said, closing my tablet, you're certainly qualified on paper. Kara's eyes brightened slightly, a flicker of hope. She leaned forward, her voice gaining confidence. I know I can do this job, Travis. I'm good at operations. I'm good at managing teams and solving problems, and I learn fast. I nodded, letting her continue. I understand if this is awkward, she said, but I'm asking you to see past our history and just look at my qualifications. I need this opportunity. I understand, I said, and I appreciate you being direct. She smiled, tentative, like she thought maybe this would work out after all. Maybe he'd forgive me, her face seemed to say. Maybe we could move past it. I let the silence sit for a moment. Then I spoke. Here's the thing, Kara. You are qualified. Your resume is strong, your references checked out, and you'd probably do well in this role. Her smile widened. But this company was built on something more than qualifications, I continued. It was built on belief. On people who saw potential when no one else did. On loyalty and faith and showing up when things were hard. Her smile faded. I need people who believed before the success, I said quietly. Not after. Kara's face crumbled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I don't say that to hurt you, I continued. I say it because it's true. The people who work here, Hank, Omar, Angela, Brenda, they all took a chance on me when I had nothing. They believed in a guy with a beat-up van and a dream. You didn't. I was scared, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't understand what you were trying to do. I know, I said, and that's okay. But it's also why this won't work. She stared at me, tears forming in her eyes. So that's it? You're punishing me for not believing in you? No, I said firmly. I'm protecting what I've built. This company means everything to me, and I need people around me who will fight for it the way I did. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I was wrong, Travis. I know I was. I'm sorry. I appreciate that, I said, but an apology doesn't change the past. And it doesn't change my decision. I stood up, signaling the end of the interview. She stood too, unsteady, like the ground was shifting beneath her. Kara walked to the door, then stopped. She turned back, her face red, her voice shaking. You know what? I didn't just doubt your business, I doubted you. And I was wrong about that too. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. Thank you, I said. She nodded once, then walked out. I stood there for a moment, listening to her footsteps fade down the hallway. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt complete, like a chapter had finally closed. Brenda knocked on the door a few minutes later. "How'd it go?" "Not a fit," I said. She nodded and left. I walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot below. Kara was walking toward her car, her shoulders slumped. And there, lined up along the curb, were 6 Beckett mobile vans, freshly washed and gleaming in the afternoon sun. She stopped beside one of them, staring at the logo, the same logo I'd sketched on napkins while she'd laughed. Then she got in her car and drove away. I watched until she disappeared around the corner. Then I turned back to my desk. There was work to do. That evening, I stood in my office overlooking the city. The lights were coming on as the sun set, casting long shadows across the downtown streets. On my desk sat a framed photo, me, Hank, Omar, Angela, and the rest of my team standing in front of our fleet of vans. We were smiling, arms around each other, proud of what we'd built together. I thought about the last 3 years, the humiliation, the doubt, the night spent alone in the Roadrunner, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. I thought about Kara's laughter at that dinner party, the way she'd called my dream pathetic, the ultimatum that had pushed me out of my own home. And I thought about today, watching her walk out of my building, realizing too late what she'd lost. Not me, the belief, the partnership, the chance to be part of something bigger. I didn't hate her. I didn't even feel sorry for her. I just felt free. My phone buzzed with a message from Hank. "Dinner Sunday?" "My place. Bringing the crew." I smiled and typed back, "Wouldn't miss it." Outside, one of our vans pulled into the lot, the driver waving up at me. I waved back. Kara had laughed at my dreams once. Now, I lived them, and that was enough.